Good morning, church. I'm on the other side. Pardon me just a second. The devil has been hard at work. Technical difficulties this morning. You can turn my mic down just a little bit. It's trying to ring. This is going to be a little bit different than most sermons, and unfortunately, I was not able to get all my pictures arranged ahead of time, but I think we'll get some of them on the screen because there's some things that you should see. Let's start off with prayer. Can you lower the mic a little bit more? Yeah, thank you. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful Sabbath day. You've blessed us so much. We know that the devil keeps poking us here and there and trying to disrupt everything we're trying to do for you. Please touch our hearts and our minds today and speak to us in the way that each of us needs to hear. We ask your special presence here this morning. Amen. Sorry. We're gonna come back to that. Let's get started, and then we'll see about getting some pictures thrown in here. Sermon title is A Long Time Ago. How long is a long time ago? Anyone want to say, example, how long is a long time ago? 20 years? A million years ago. That's a little too extreme in this case. 100 years ago, you said? Yeah. When Grandma was alive. I like that perspective, yeah. Fortunately, today I get to have my daughter filling in on some of the technology back there. I remember when she was just a little thing. It was a long time ago. And now she has a little thing also in the back, my grandson. Such a long time ago when they were little. But it wasn't that long ago. Further back, my sister and I have made memories as we grew up together doing various things with our parents over the years, things at church or outings together, camping and backpacking and such. That was a long time ago. I'm feeling kind of old now at 45. What? One of my points of reference in the past, like you had mentioned here, is 1915. That's the year of the birth of my maternal grandfather. It's just a point of reference for me. And I think of that in terms of the Titanic back then, sinking in April of 1912. Just gives a point of reference. Technology has been more of my interest and has given me some reference for historical eras and such in the last 100 or 200 years. Now, I am definitely not a history guy. I was never happy in history class, memorizing dates and names that I had no connection to. Boring. But as I've aged, I've begun appreciating some parts of history and some so-called artifacts, or it's more like evidence of things that had been done, or the way things used to be, or what's been changed since then. You get to see this physical evidence. It gives us clues or hints, kind of like a puzzle to be solved. So it sparks a little interest. This sermon isn't really a deep Bible study, but I plan to tie it in at the end, so bear with me. Our current church here, who has been attending this church the longest? I'm guessing here, Colleen, of the people here, you've been here the longest? Okay. You're the oldest too? Ah. How long have you been here?
I was baptized in 72.
Baptized in 72?
January 72.
Nice. Okay. That was your start here. Okay. Okay.
But I came in and studied in 71.
Okay. Okay. So the church looked basically like it does now at that time when you came. The building, the structure was like this. Yeah. So that tells me that nobody was here when the expansion was added on, because we have a two-phase construction here.
It was added on there at the upstairs.
It had just finished, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So this church building has had around 65 years of existence here. I'm not sure how many of you, just a few, I think, that knew Adelia Lichau. Am I saying the name right? Lihau. Oh, okay. She's served here faithfully for a long time, as far as I know, helping keep things in order. Passed away a while back. I was wondering if maybe she might have been the last one here that went clear back into the construction times, if she was around then. Okay. However, I must note that her family is the family from the Pengrove area, where you find Lichau Creek, or Lihau.
Yeah.
Again, this C was silent, okay. And east of Runner Park, there's Lihau Road, out into the hills. Yeah. I think I'm skipping a few photos here. We'll try something in a bit. I'll share a little bit more about this church's history and the church that existed here in Petaluma before it, and then we'll take a step back to a longer time ago. I think I've got to. We need. Okay. So, and you see, let's do some zooming in. There is this church when it was first built. And you can see on the right-hand edge, it's not like we have now. And that's because it was built in two parts. This was the original. It was built in 59, roughly, 58. Construction, okay, so we have these newspaper clippings and photos that I've found in a scrapbook here. There's some neat bits of history, and I grabbed some photos of it back then, and I look forward to digging into it more sometime here. But, so this is one of the photos of the article. Construction was expected to begin on June of '57 and to be completed by November of 1958. But there must have been some delays in the plans. I know there was this original drawing, which is not quite how it is. But I think things had changed from that point. And they, let's see, construction actually was noted to have begun in August of 1958, with a grand opening on March 28, 1959. And I think that's, oops, where'd it go? There it is. That's what was happening here. See at the top, April 29, 1959. It was dedicated on November 19, 1960. That is a nice one here. There's the front of the bulletin. Take a look at that picture. Definitely different than now, huh? There was actually stained glass window behind here. And the parking lot, of course, was just dirt. It's an interesting glimpse into the past, though. There were many pastors. I'm going to skip names and things because I'm sure none of us have any connection. It's kind of like history class. It's like, just, can we skip it?
I actually know Farrell personally, but I didn't see him.
Oh.
Running harvest time out in Tennessee, so I've spent several days with him.
So you knew of that connection? You saw the name up there. Okay, yeah, Vance Farrell. Yeah, he was around at the time of the construction, and Robert C. Hampel at the groundbreaking. 10 years later, follow that flow. 10 years later, 1970-ish is when this new addition was built with Darrell Dretzer was the pastor at that time. He soon moved to Willits, and the Carr family, which I know some of us know, were part of hosting his farewell. So we're getting some closer connections in there. The Carr family was around when I first arrived about 12 and a half years ago, but I didn't know them. That's the next step. Yeah. Wanted to also show this old photo, not too old, but we had nice stone sign out there. Although some might have compared it to a tombstone, and didn't quite seem to fit the image here. But that used to be out there. So before this was the old church, which Colleen has mentioned. And here is a picture of that. Memories, huh? Yeah. So, taking a leap backward, in the late 1890s, that's 100 years, 90 years before I existed. Wait, yeah, 1980. This is 1890.
It was on English and Upham.
Yes. The information I have says that in the 1890s, the members built the church on Douglas Street. And then in the early 1900s, it was moved to this site that we see in the picture at English and Upham. And it was remodeled in 1941. I don't have much info, but basically it was outgrown. They needed a bigger space and planned this one. So and at that time it was 2 miles north of the city limits. The old site was turned over by Pastor Vance Farrell to the Petaluma Cooperative Creamery. And, yeah. You see that here. That was inside that old church. They handed it over to the Petaluma Creamery. They used it for a little while, and then the building was taken down, and that's part of their parking lot area and behind the processing facility. The trucks pull in there and stuff. So that's a little snapshot of where we were.
Our old church right down Petaluma Boulevard here.
I heard about that, and I have looked. She says that building was moved over here on Petaluma Boulevard somewhere, and I have looked for it, and I haven't seen it, but has been significantly changed.
8 or 10 months,
Yeah.
and it's hardly recognizable.
Yeah. Okay. So
Flower shop now.
it's a flower shop now. Okay. Learning more things. So, what happened before this church? Before this church. What happened in Petaluma? I was trying to dig into this history of Seventh-day Adventists in California, which I'd understood to have started here in Petaluma with meetings under a tent. I think many of us have heard about
I
that.
have information in a book in the Sabbath school room about the whole history from.
Very specifically Petaluma.
Being, and before they came to California.
Yeah, yeah. I'll cover a little bit of it here from what I've seen in the articles and some other online resources as well. So I had done some digging, and I found there's much more about our church activities around in Sonoma County here than I had ever realized before. It's kind of impressive. Remember, again, I'm not a history kind of guy, but this stuff started jumping off the pages at me, and it is interesting. I'll give you a semi-brief overview of the history of the beginnings of Seventh-day Adventists in California, or technically the western half of the USA. One newspaper article from May of 1965. I'm pretty sure I see this here. Was that this one? No. Where's the handwriting? This one. Yeah. This says May of 1965. Petaluma had First Adventist Church west of Mississippi. Let me read a little bit of that here. You can probably see that too. The city of Petaluma holds a significant place in the history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Petaluma's church was the first Seventh-day Adventist church to be organized west of the Mississippi River. 2 ministers, J.N. Lofborough and D.T. Bordeaux, with their families, sailed from New York to the Isthmus of Panama in 1868, crossing the isthmus by narrow gauge railroad. The ministers and their families boarded another ship, the Golden City, which arrived at San Francisco in July of the same year, 1868. Accepting an invitation to come to Petaluma, the ministers pitched a large tent in the city and held a series of evangelistic meetings. Their efforts resulted in the formation of the local church. Yeah. So, that's our beginnings here. And that's not just, here in Petaluma, this is in California, period. And west of the Rockies, one of the things said, or west of the Mississippi. So Kellogg, if you're not familiar, yes, Kellogg the cereal brand. He had a stepbrother, Merritt G. Kellogg. He had arrived in San Francisco in 1859. He was sharing with small groups, and they realized that they needed some formal pastoral leadership help. And they sent money and asked the newly formed General Conference in Battle Creek for a minister. But no one was available at the time. A few years later, Kellogg went in person and asked for help for the ministry in California. This time, J.N. Loughborough, as it said, and D.T. Bordeaux were inspired to go. I'm pretty sure I didn't get the photos of them. They took that steamboat and crossed the Panama Canal, came up to San Francisco. They searched for a good place to hold their meetings. Buildings around San Francisco were too expensive, and they ended up 50 miles north, here in Petaluma. And they think it was at basically where the fairgrounds are now.
I think I understood on C Street in Petaluma.
Could be C Street.
Church.
Oh, the church. But these meetings under a 60-foot diameter tent.
First tent meeting.
Yeah, 60 feet. That's pretty close to the back wall of the church up to this proscenium here. I'm sorry, that's 50 foot. So the back wall, 60 feet from the back to this projection screen. That's a nice sized tent. But that's how they had to have meetings back then. Remember, this was back in horse and buggy days. Some of that was involved in some people's travel. You know, others had trains and the steamboats.
And there was no Panama Canal at that time. That was
Right. It's said that they crossed on the railroad.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have driven
No Panama
from here
Canal.
to New York and back a couple of times.
It's a
They
long
didn't have
trip.
that option.
Yeah, it's a long trip on the land, straight across the country. So they took a boat, railway across Panama. Yeah, it was saying the Isthmus of Panama, not the Panama Canal. And you have a connection over here with Panama, home country. So it was nearly exactly 157 years ago, August 13, 1868, that they held their tent meetings here in Petaluma, and that ignited the movement here in the North Bay area. I'm not normally a reading type of person to sit down with a book, but there is something about this not too long ago history that it's right here around us, and it sparks an interest. It makes a closer connection, and as they say, it hits close to home. So there's too much information for me to have sifted through and prepared for the sermon, so I'll mention a few more points to hopefully spark a little more interest that you can follow up further if you'd like. The fun was just in the last few days, the history started kind of smacking me in the face to say, I'm here. I was reading some accounts of a famous writer and saw things noted about places very near to where I work, up in Healdsburg. I began looking at maps and satellite images and realized how incredibly close I was, but I didn't even know the history until now. There is an old house at 201 Powell in Healdsburg that I had previously passed by without knowing anything about it. And there's another old house out on the western side of the valley, in Dry Creek Valley, at 1950 West Dry Creek Road, that I had passed by just last Thursday as I was going to a client's house. I've been there many times, and I've definitely recognized that house. I didn't know anything about it. until now. So I recognized it very quickly when I saw it on the map. I said, oh, it's that place. This famous writer had lived in those houses at certain times. Do we have any guesses at who this famous writer is? Yeah, I hear White. Ellen White, the most translated female writer in the world. For those of you that might be less familiar, she was one of the leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist movement. Ellen White was our church's modern-day prophetess. She had been in and around Healdsburg as the movement spread from Petaluma tent meetings. And tying into Garnett's comment earlier, last night, that full moon just caught my eye. That was amazing. And I couldn't help but think of Ellen White. She was noting herself that, she does not claim to be the light herself, being the lesser light, like the moon. All it's doing is reflecting the sun's light. So, with a quick internet search that I found on Sonoma County's historic info, a significant part about Ellen White and the Adventist Church's contributions in Healdsburg was there. There was the Healdsburg College. Has anyone heard of Healdsburg College? Okay. College Street up there was named after it. It later moved over to Angwin. That's known as Pacific Union College. But I just had not known how significant the Adventism was doing things in Healdsburg back at the time. There was a building just east of the Healdsburg Plaza on Matheson that was a public library. And I didn't get those photos moved in here. But I went and visited it yesterday on my lunch break. I took a longer lunch break to go check some things out. So it was a public library, and now it's a museum. So it's a history museum and historical archive and research facility. I got to talk with Molly, the director of the place. She was actually quite knowledgeable about the Adventist history in Healdsburg and the impact of the church in Healdsburg. It was quite fascinating and eye-opening. The actual old Adventist church up there would have been directly across the street from her office. She'd look right out her window at it. But, many of those old buildings are sadly gone now. So the real interesting thing, the museum has had many rotating exhibits in it. Of course, they do that, they change things. And they realized they needed to present some history about Healdsburg itself and its development. So they've just made a new exhibit, which actually opened just this morning, like 2 hours ago. Total surprise to me. And I just wonder what connections, if God led me there particularly or what at this time and led me to Holly. Holly, yes, that was her name. Molly. It just seemed so weird how these pieces were kind of connecting together just like that. It was just amazing how the timing of my historical digging had lined up with this exhibition opening. So I don't know why it didn't get in here, but I had a picture of the wall in that exhibition. I was like a VIP getting a preview of this exhibition, and one wall has this fantastic map, the old drawn style map of Healdsburg, with the college and the church and such things that are noted on it. Over on the side is this text about Ellen White and Adventism picture of her group. There was a box with some artifact type things. Like, wow. It was just, I went from history popping off the page to here it is in person. I'm looking at this stuff. So that's an exciting new thing, and I encourage you to go visit at some point. Check out their hours online, and be prepared to give a donation as well, just to help keep the history staying alive. So, as I try to summarize and draw to a close here, this church history in California had just been jumping off the pages, and it felt like it was something real, because it was real. It is real. I think too often we read about old things as if they were just so long ago and they don't really have much impact on us today. We have so many distractions, like that, sorry, leaving that up. We have so many distractions in this world that keep us from truly seeing where we've come from and where we're going. We've got to pray for our kids to realize that they can learn from parents, grandparents, pastors, and elders, teachers. We're all here to help and to grow. So often, our young ones are trying to plot their own way. They're learning things for themselves, and we forget that there's this need to connect with the past to help us see into the future. And I think this brings us back to our scripture reading. As you therefore have received Christ Jesus in the Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him and established in the faith, as you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. For in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him, who is the head of all principality and power. This world has so many traditions of men and philosophy and empty deceit. Our church's predecessors had great challenges to face. We're talking about fording streams, trying to get to people's houses to do the visitation and do things. Ellen White herself would have held a horse while the other would take one horse across the stream, checking the path back and forth to make sure that that was safe to then take the carriages through. Like, just put some of that into perspective. The challenges that they would go through to spread the word. They worked hard to search for the truth and to listen to God's leading and to grow and to serve the community and to spread God's message. Like those that have gone before us, we should not forget to keep closely connected with Christ, who is the head of all principality and power. The future is open for us to make a mark on history. With God's direction, we can make that a good mark in history for all to look back on and be inspired by what happened a long time ago.